Are you a current or future educator? Did you go to a public high school? Do you value education? Do you support big business? If you said yes to any of these questions, let's play a quick game.
Let's play Fact or Fiction. Ready? Let's go. Number 1. The original intention of charter schools was to create competition for public schools. That is fiction. Number 2. Charter schools are a great way to make money. That is a fact. Number 3. The results of standardized test scores accurately represent a teacher. That is fiction.
Well, what does all this mean to you? As a future educator, it is important to be aware of what's happening in our education system. In her book, Reign of Error, The Hoax of Privatization Movement and the Dangers to America's Public Schools, Diane Ravitch takes a closer look at these 3 key concepts and tons more. Let's see what she has to say about each.
Number 1. The original intention of charter schools was to create competition for public schools. Fiction. Albert Schenker was the founding father of the charter movement. His vision was that charter schools would collaborate with the public school system rather than compete with it. Charter schools were intended to help struggling students for a period of time until they were back on track. In time, however, Schenker renounced his idea, but there were still a number of advocates that pushed for charter schools. The American Legislative Exchange Council, otherwise known as ALEC, has 4 key points concerning charter schools. Number 1. Charter schools are public schools. Number 2. Charter schools should be exempt from most state laws and regulations applied to public schools. Number 3. Charter schools may be authorized by multiple agencies. Number 4. Governors should have the power to appoint a board to authorize charters and override the local school boards. This mentality suggests that charter operators want it both ways. They want government funding without any of the corresponding rules and regulations. Get this. Most evidence proves that the average academic results of charters are no different than the traditional public schools serving the same exact type of students. In Reign of Error, Diane Ravitch spends a lot of time discussing charter schools and all of the politics behind them. As she is reflecting on how charter schools are changing our school system, she states, "In the public schools, an essential element in our democracy for many generations have suffered damage that may be irreplaceable." Let that sink in for a second.
Number 2. Charter schools are a great way to make money. It's a fact. Entrepreneurs look at the budget cuts to our education department as a way to make money rather than a serious problem. It's possible to think that Common Core was made to be difficult on purpose, so that schools needed to pay extra money for extra resources. It's all a big money loop. The prices for online services are significantly greater than for in-person services, and the money is taken out of an already tight state budget for education. The biggest cost to a school is teacher salaries, and the biggest savings is raising class sizes, which is why virtual charter schools are favored so greatly. However, at the end of the day, the money that virtual charter schools receive is far more than their actual cost, making them a great way to make money. In addition, students who are enrolled in online schools have lower test scores, lower graduation rates, and higher attrition rates compared to their peers in traditional schools. As a matter of fact, cyber charters are so underperforming that if they were public schools, they would have been shut down immediately. Since they have political connections and virtually no accountability, they remain open. Finally, a report by the National Education Policy Center claims that students in K-12 virtual schools do worse in reading and math than students in brick-and-mortar schools. Cyber isn't necessarily better.
Number 3. The results of standardized test scores accurately represent a teacher. Fiction. In a time where test scores can literally determine the fate of a student's future, it's important to evaluate their purpose. There's only one authoritative measure of academic performance over time, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Sir Winston Churchill worries that, in an effort to raise our standardized test scores, we will lose individuality and creativity, both of which have ultimately led to our success as a nation. The purpose of standardized tests is to compare students' performance to the norm, not to determine a teacher's effectiveness. In all honesty, test scores should be used diagnostically, not as a gauge for rewards or for punishment. In Reign of Error, Diane Ravitch brings up a great point. When tests become more important than instruction, something is fundamentally amiss in our thinking.
Believe it or not, we've only scratched the surface on all the information concerning charter schools and standardized tests. Intrigued to learn more? Get yourself a copy of Reign of Error by Diane Ravitch on iBooks, Google Play Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and almost anywhere books are sold.